Commander Kim stood at the viewport of Earth Defense Fleet's monitoring station, watching the distant stars. It was her third rotation this month, another quiet shift cataloging the cosmos. The tracking systems had been calm for weeks, until they weren't. "Commander, you need to see this," called out Officer Lee, his voice unusually tight. Multiple signatures appearing at the edge of the system. Kim moved quickly to the main console, her coffee forgotten. The holographic display showed dozens of objects entering the solar system, objects that matched no known human vessel profiles. "How many?" she asked, keeping her voice steady even as her heart raced. 47 and counting. "They're in formation, Commander." The room fell silent. After centuries of secret exploration, after decades of careful observation and hidden expansion, humanity's greatest fear was unfolding before their eyes. Earth had discovered FTL travel almost by accident. A physics experiment gone wonderfully right, and had spent the following centuries building colonies across nearby star systems. But early observation missions had revealed something troubling. Other intelligent species already dominated the galaxy. These species had formed the Galactic Assembly, and their treatment of less advanced civilizations was disturbing at best. So Earth had made a choice. Hide, watch, learn, expand, quietly. "Get me Admiral Park," Kim ordered, "and initiate silent protocol across all colonies." The silent protocol was something they'd rehearsed but never actually implemented, a complete communications blackout with minimal emergency channels. When the connection to fleet headquarters established, Admiral Park's weathered face appeared on screen. "It's confirmed then?" he asked without preamble. "Yes, sir. Assembly vessels, approaching in standard exploration formation. They're not trying to hide their presence." Park closed his eyes briefly. "The Sparrow?" Kim nodded. The EDF Sparrow, a scout ship that had gone missing 3 weeks ago near assembly space. They'd feared the worst, but hoped the ship's self-destruct protocols had activated before it could be tracked. "They must have captured it intact enough to trace its origin signature," Kim said. Outside the viewport, the distant stars continued their silent watch, unconcerned with the drama unfolding beneath them. Humanity had spread to over 200 planets and moons, all while maintaining the illusion that Earth was just another developing world, its residents unaware of galactic politics. "We always knew this day might come," Park said. "Implement First Contact Scenario 4. Kim felt her stomach tighten. Scenario 4 wasn't surrender, but it wasn't resistance either. It was revelation. A controlled revelation of some of humanity's capabilities, but not all. "Sir, are we sure?" The simulations showed that hiding once discovered only makes us appear weak or deceptive, Park interrupted. "We reveal enough to earn respect, not enough to cause fear." The next 12 hours passed in a blur of activity. Colony worlds went dark, military assets repositioned, and on Earth, governments prepared their populations for the news that humans weren't alone in the universe, and the others had just knocked on their door. Kim watched the assembly ships approach, their designs elegant and clearly built for both speed and power. The largest vessel, nearly 3 kilometers long, slowed as it reached Mars orbit. A transmission followed shortly after. "This is Senior Observer Han of the Galactic Assembly Diplomatic Corps. We request communication with Earth Authority representatives." The translator software worked perfectly, another technology humans had quietly developed while monitoring assembly communications over the decades. "Observer Han, this is Commander Kim of the Earth Defense Fleet. We acknowledge your arrival and are prepared for diplomatic exchange." There was a pause. Kim imagined surprise on the alien faces. "You are familiar with us?" The question carried unmistakable shock. "We've been observing assembly activities for some time," Kim replied, following the carefully crafted script developed for this moment. "We've chosen to develop independently until now." Another pause, longer this time. "Your civilization possesses faster-than-light technology. This was unexpected." Kim allowed herself a small smile. There are many things about humanity that may surprise you, Observer Han. We request a formal meeting between our representatives. The communication continued, arrangements made, and when Kim finally returned to her quarters hours later, she stared at her reflection in the mirror. The woman looking back at her carried the weight of centuries of human secrecy and preparation. "Oops, they found us," she whispered to herself, a touch of gallows humor in her voice. But beneath the joke lay a deep uncertainty. Humanity had hidden, because they'd seen how the assembly treated newcomers, as servants, as lesser beings. Now the game of hide-and-seek was over. Tomorrow, diplomats would meet. Tomorrow, humanity would step onto the galactic stage. And Kim knew that everything depended on what happened next. Whether humans would join the stars as equals or be forced to fight for their independence against an established power that had never faced a true challenge to their authority. The question wasn't whether humans were ready. They'd been preparing for this moment for generations. The question was whether the assembly was ready for humans. The meeting room aboard the Earth diplomatic vessel Harmony buzzed with quiet tension. 24 hours had passed since the assembly fleet's arrival, and now humanity faced its first official contact with galactic civilization. Commander Kim stood by the window, watching the massive alien flagship that hovered nearby. Its sleek design reminded her of ancient sea creatures from Earth's oceans. "They're requesting permission to dock," said Officer Lee, looking up from his communications panel. Kim nodded. "Grant it, and notify the welcome team." The human delegation had been carefully selected: scientists, military personnel, and government representatives. Each person chosen not just for their expertise but for their calm under pressure. They would need it today. The airlock cycled open with a soft hiss. Admiral Tay of the Galactic Assembly stepped through first, followed by 6 other aliens of different species. Tay stood nearly 7 feet tall with copper-colored skin that seemed to shimmer under the lights. His 4 eyes, arranged in a diamond pattern, scanned the room quickly. "Welcome to the Harmony," said Director Jun, stepping forward as Earth's lead diplomat. "We're honored to host this historic meeting." Admiral Tay tilted his head slightly. "Your translator technology is impressive, as is this vessel." His voice carried a note of surprise he couldn't quite hide. "Please join us," Jun gestured, to the conference table. As everyone took their seats, Kim observed the aliens closely. They had expected to find primitive humans, perhaps just beginning to explore their own solar system. Instead, they found a civilization with hundreds of colony, worlds and technology that matched, and in some cases exceeded, their own. The confusion on their faces was unmistakable. "Let us address the obvious question," Tay began once formalities concluded. "How long has Earth possessed faster-than-light capability?" Director Jun smiled politely. "We achieved reliable FTL travel approximately 340 Earth years ago." The statement caused visible shock among the assembly representatives. One of the smaller aliens, a green-skinned being with large liquid eyes, actually gasped. "That's impossible," said a reptilian delegate. "Our surveys of this region just 2 centuries ago showed no signs of advanced technology." "That was by design," Kim interjected. "We detected your survey ships and masked our technological signatures." Silence fell across the room. Admiral Tay's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "Why would an advanced civilization hide its presence?" he finally asked. Jun opened a holographic display in the center of the table. It showed recordings, hundreds of them, of assembly ships approaching other worlds. Then came documents, communications, trade agreements. "We've been watching and listening," June explained. "We observed how the assembly incorporates new species into its structure. The mandatory guidance periods, the resource quotas, the technological restrictions. The aliens shifted uncomfortably as their own records played before them. Records of worlds stripped of resources, of species relegated to servitude for centuries before earning limited autonomy. "You've been spying on assembly activities," Tay said, his tone hardening. "We've been learning," Kim corrected, "learning enough to make an informed decision about contact." And that decision was to hide? Asked the green-skinned alien. Jun nodded. Until we were ready. Until we could meet as equals, not as subjects. The tension in the room thickened. Admiral Tay leaned forward, his copper skin now flushed darker. Show me your colonies, he demanded. Jun hesitated, then activated another hologram. The display expanded to show human settlements across hundreds of worlds, mining operations on asteroids, research stations in deep space, terraforming projects transforming barren planets into habitable worlds. Tay's eyes widened. This is impossible. The Assembly's exploration fleets would have found these. Kim allowed herself a small smile. Your fleets follow predictable routes. We simply built where you don't look. The meeting continued, for hours. The Assembly representatives requested demonstrations of human technology, particularly their FTL drives. Jun provided limited information, enough to establish credibility, not enough to reveal all their capabilities. During a brief recess, Kim found herself standing alone with Admiral Tay near the refreshment table. Your people have accomplished something unprecedented, Tay admitted quietly. No species has ever joined galactic society at this level of development. We're not joining, Kim corrected. We're introducing ourselves. Tay studied her. The Assembly has protocols for new species. Those protocols assume the new species needs guidance, Kim replied. We don't. The Admiral set down his drink. 3 centuries of secret expansion. Observation posts watching our activities. Technology that somehow evaded our detection. He shook his head slowly. Do you understand how threatening this appears? To us? Kim met his gaze steadily. About as threatening as your history appears to us. When the meeting reconvened, the tone had shifted. The Assembly representatives spoke among themselves in hushed tones. Director Jun continued presenting Earth's history and capabilities, carefully omitting certain technological breakthroughs. We propose a mutual recognition agreement, Jun concluded. Earth acknowledges the Galactic Assembly as the predominant political entity in this region of space. In return, the Assembly recognizes Earth and its colonies as an independent power, not subject to standard integration protocols. Admiral Tay's expression revealed nothing. The High Council will need to consider this unusual situation. Of course, Jun nodded. We've waited centuries. We can wait a little longer. As the Assembly delegation prepared to depart, Kim overheard 2 aliens speaking. They've been watching us all this time, whispered the green-skinned being. What else do they know? What else indeed, Kim thought. The Assembly had found humans, but they hadn't found all their secrets. Not yet. The real question was what would happen when they did. 3 days had passed since the initial meeting, and the tension aboard the space station hadn't eased. The human delegation now hosted Assembly scientists and engineers who had requested demonstrations of Earth's technology. Commander Kim watched as Dr. Song prepared the holographic display for their presentation on FTL technology. Are you sure about this? Kim asked quietly. The Admiral has authorized only Level 3 disclosure. Dr. Song nodded, her hands moving confidently over the controls. Don't worry, I know exactly how much to show them. Enough to impress, not enough to reveal. The door slid open and the Assembly technical team entered. Leading them was Chief Engineer Pak, a tall being with 4 arms and skin that seemed to shift colors with his mood. Currently a deep blue of professional curiosity. We appreciate this opportunity, Pak said, his translator conveying perfect politeness. The Assembly has been using wormhole technology for interstellar travel for over 2,000 years. We're interested in your alternative approach. Dr. Song activated the display, showing a simplified model of the human fold drive system. While your ships tear holes in space-time to create temporary passages, our technology works differently. We create a bubble that warps space-time around the vessel itself. The Assembly scientists leaned forward, their expressions showing various forms of disbelief and fascination. Impossible, muttered one, a reptilian being with scales that gleamed under the lights. The energy requirements alone would Would be astronomical using conventional physics, Dr. Song finished for him. But we discovered something 3 centuries ago that your scientists apparently missed. She expanded the display to show subatomic particles behaving in ways that contradicted standard models. We call it the Song effect, a way to create localized space-time distortions using only a fraction of the energy your wormholes require. The blue color of Pak's skin deepened to almost black. This can't be right. Our greatest minds have explored these principles for millennia. Perhaps they were looking in the wrong direction, Dr. Song suggested gently. Sometimes the simplest solutions are hidden in plain sight. As the technical discussion continued, Kim slipped out to meet with Admiral Park, who had arrived from Earth. She found him in the observation deck watching the assembly mothership through the transparent aluminum window. "They're shocked," Kim reported, "particularly about our fold drive efficiency." Park nodded without looking away from the massive alien vessel. "And they still don't know about the dimensional aspects." The human discovery hadn't just been about folding space. It was about accessing higher dimensions that the assembly had never reached. Dimensions where their ships could travel undetected, where they could observe without being observed. "The Assembly Council is meeting now," Park said. "Our intelligence suggests they're divided on how to respond to us." Before Kim could reply, her communication device chimed urgently. "Commander, we have a situation. 3 assembly cruisers have broken formation and are approaching Moonbase Alpha." Park's expression hardened. "The hardliners making a move, I was afraid of this." They rushed to the command center where Officer Lee already had the tactical display active. 3 wedge-shaped vessels were accelerating toward humanity's largest lunar base, home to over 50,000 people. "They're charging weapons," Lee reported. "Kinetic barriers activated at the base, but they won't hold against a sustained assault." Kim opened a channel. "Unidentified assembly vessels, this is Commander Kim of Earth Defense. You are approaching a civilian settlement. State your intentions immediately." The response came in a harsh, unfamiliar voice. "This is Commander Gill of the Assembly Security Force. We are conducting a standard safety assessment of your outpost's defensive capabilities." "Without notification or permission," Kim replied coldly. "Withdraw your vessels now. We do not require permission to inspect potential threats," Gill responded. "The Assembly has protocols, and Earth has boundaries," Kim interrupted. "Final warning. Withdraw." Park stepped forward. "Activate Defense Grid Theta. Authorization Park 7 Delta." Around the moon, previously invisible satellites came to life. They weren't weapons in the conventional sense, nothing so crude as missiles or energy beams. They were something far more sophisticated. The lead assembly cruiser fired what appeared to be a warning shot, a flash of energy that arced toward an unpopulated section of the lunar surface. But the beam never arrived. Instead, it simply vanished midway. "What just happened?" demanded Gill over the still-open channel. Kim allowed herself a small smile. "Your weapons fire encountered a localized space-time distortion, a defensive application of our fold drive technology." Silence stretched for several seconds before Gill responded. "Impossible. No known technology can intercept directed energy weapons in transit." "Until now," Park said simply. On the tactical display, the moon base remained untouched. The defensive satellites, perfectly hidden until activated, had created small pockets of warped space around the base, redirecting any incoming attack into pocket dimensions where they harmlessly dissipated. The assembly vessels hung motionless, clearly reassessing the situation. Then slowly they began to withdraw. "A misunderstanding," Gill finally offered. "We were merely testing readiness." After the channel closed, the command center erupted in controlled activity. Reports flowed in, systems were checked, and defensive postures maintained. "They weren't expecting that," Lee said, unable to keep the pride from his voice. "No," Park agreed. "They've spent thousands of years as the most advanced civilization in known space. They've forgotten what it's like to be surprised." Kim studied the tactical display, watching the assembly ships retreat. They'll report this to their council. This changes the diplomatic equation. Park nodded gravely. It was always going to come to this. They needed to understand we aren't simply another species to be absorbed into their hierarchy. As if on cue, a priority message arrived from the diplomatic team still meeting with the assembly representatives. The aliens were requesting an emergency session with Earth's highest leadership. It seems, Park said with grim satisfaction, that we've finally gotten their full attention. Kim looked back at the display showing the assembly mothership. For centuries, humanity had hidden in the shadows, watching and learning. Now they stood in the light, and the galaxy was beginning to understand that humans were not merely another race to be catalogued and controlled. They had found humanity, yes, but they had no idea what they had found. The grand meeting hall aboard the assembly flagship glittered with light reflected off polished surfaces. Commander Kim stood behind Director Jun, trying to keep her face neutral despite the tension that filled the room. The failed inspection of Moonbase Alpha had changed everything. What had begun as careful diplomacy had now evolved into something far more serious. The Assembly High Council, 7 beings representing the founding species of their coalition, sat opposite the human delegation. At the center was Grand Overseer Nam, an ancient being whose translucent skin revealed the slow pulse of multiple hearts. His voice, when he spoke, carried the weight of thousands of years of authority. We have reviewed all information regarding Earth and its unexpected development, Nam began. The Council has reached a decision on humanity's status within galactic society. Director Jun nodded respectfully but said nothing. The humans had been preparing for this moment for generations. Humanity has demonstrated remarkable technological achievement, Nam continued. However, your species' secretive expansion and military capabilities represent a destabilizing influence in this sector. One of the other council members, a being with crystalline features that sparkled under the lights, leaned forward. You have hidden among us, watched us, studied our weaknesses. You have developed weapons that can neutralize our most advanced systems. Defensive systems, Jun corrected calmly. Deployed only after your vessels threatened a civilian settlement. Nam raised a hand, silencing further debate. The Council offers Earth 2 options. His multiple eyes blinked in sequence. First, Earth may join the Assembly as a protected species. You will receive full access to Assembly knowledge bases, trade networks, and cultural exchange, under necessary guidance. Of course, your military capabilities will be placed under joint command, and expansion of human settlements will proceed according to established protocols. Kim felt her jaw tighten at the word protected. It was exactly as they had feared. The Assembly couldn't conceive of incorporating humans as equals. And the second option? Jun asked, voice carefully neutral. Nam's expression hardened slightly. Should Earth refuse protection, we will establish a galactic containment zone around your claimed territory. No human vessels will be permitted beyond this boundary. No Assembly worlds will trade with Earth. You will remain isolated. The threat was clear. Accept subordinate status or face complete blockade. Director Jun looked at the datapad before him for a long moment. Then he raised his eyes to meet Nam's gaze. The Earth Union appreciates the Council's offer, he said. However, before we respond, there is additional information you should consider. Jun nodded to Kim, who stepped forward and activated her own holographic display. The image that appeared showed a star map, but not just of local space. It expanded outward, revealing hundreds of points of light scattered across multiple spiral arms of the galaxy. What is this? Demanded the crystalline council member. This, Kim said, is the current extent of human presence in the galaxy. Murmurs spread through the Assembly representatives as they studied the display. Many of the marked locations were deep in what they considered their territory, some in regions they had never even explored. Impossible, said a council member, with features obscured by a breathing apparatus. Our sensors would have detected your colonies. Kim allowed herself a small smile. Not colonies. Observation posts, Research stations. Outposts built using our dimensional fold technology that your sensors can't detect. She expanded one section of the map, highlighting a cluster of stars near the galactic core, an area the assembly considered uninhabitable due to radiation. Here, we've established contact with the Nari, a species your surveys dismissed as pre-industrial. Another section highlighted a dense nebula region. And here, the Vel Collective, whom your reports classified as primitive aquatic life forms unsuitable for uplift. With each revelation, the council members' expressions shifted from disbelief to growing alarm. The Nari? The Vel? Nam's voice had lost its commanding tone. You've contacted these species, June nodded, and shared technology with them, including our fold drive designs. The silence that followed was absolute. Kim could almost see the calculations happening behind Nam's eyes, trying to grasp the implications of what they were hearing. For centuries, June continued, humanity has observed how the assembly categorizes and controls less advanced species. We made a different choice. We formed partnerships instead of hierarchies. Kim advanced the display to show footage of human ships working alongside vessels of clearly alien design. The sleek organic shapes of Vel ships and the crystalline structures of Nari craft. You've been arming primitive species? The accusation came from a council member at the far end. We've been helping overlooked species develop according to their own paths, Kim corrected. Species the assembly deemed unworthy of attention. Jun rose to his feet, his voice taking on new authority. So now you understand our position. Your containment zone would be meaningless. We're already beyond it. Your trade embargo would fail. We have partners you never considered important enough to monitor. Nam's translucent skin had darkened with what Kim assumed was the alien equivalent of concern. You speak of partnership, yet you've operated in secret, building a shadow coalition against the assembly. Not against, June said firmly. Independent of. There is a difference. Kim watched as the council members conferred among themselves, their translator devices switched off for privacy. The human delegation waited patiently. They had revealed only part of their hand, enough to demonstrate that the assembly's ultimatum held no power. Finally, Nam turned back to them. The council requests a recess to reconsider its position. After the council members departed, Kim moved closer to Jun. They're shocked, she observed. Jun nodded. They should be. For thousands of years, they've operated on the assumption that technological superiority grants them absolute authority. We've just shattered that assumption. What happens now? Asked one of the younger diplomats. Jun looked out the viewport at the stars beyond. Now we find out if they can adapt. If they can conceive of a galaxy where power isn't hoarded by a few ancient species. And if they can't? Kim asked quietly. Jun's core expression remained calm, but his eyes held a steely resolve. Then they'll learn that finding us was just the beginning of their education. The observation deck of Earth's orbital diplomatic center offered a breathtaking view of the planet below. Blue oceans, swirling white clouds, and the green-brown patches of continents rotated slowly beneath the assembled delegates. Commander, Kim stood by the window watching not Earth but the mixed fleet that hovered in formation nearby. Assembly vessels alongside human ships and, most significantly, the distinctive crafts of the Nari and Vel. 1 month had passed since the failed ultimatum. 1 month of intense negotiations, demonstrations of technology, and cultural exchanges that had transformed the initial contact into something no one had predicted. Quite a sight, isn't it? Admiral Tay appeared beside her, his copper skin catching the light from Earth's reflection. In my 300 years of service, I never imagined standing here. Kim nodded. Nor did I imagine hosting an assembly admiral as a genuine diplomatic partner rather than an overseer. Tay's 4 eyes blinked in their curious pattern. You've forced quite a reckoning within our hierarchy. Many still resist the changes. Change is rarely comfortable, Kim acknowledged. Especially after thousands of years of doing things one way. The doors at the far end opened and delegates began filing in for the historic signing ceremony. Humans in their formal attire, assembly representatives in their elaborate ceremonial garments, the crystalline Nari, whose bodies chimed softly as they moved. The Vel, housed in their water-filled environmental suits that gave them a ghostly flowing appearance. Director June took his position at the central podium, flanked by Grand Overseer Nam and representatives from the other species. The room fell silent as Jun began speaking. "Today marks not just a treaty between powers," he said, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. "Today marks a fundamental shift in how we conceive of galactic civilization." Kim watched the faces of the assembly delegates. Some showed clear discomfort. Others appeared curious, even excited. The old order was crumbling before them, and not everyone was unhappy about it. "For too long," Jun continued, "the assembly has operated on a principle of technological determinism, the belief that advancement in technology should dictate political standing. Today we establish a new framework, one where diverse paths of development are valued equally." Nam stepped forward next. The ancient leader had aged visibly during the negotiations, not physically, but in the subtle exhaustion behind his eyes. Yet there was also something new there, something that looked almost like hope. "The assembly has existed for 6,000 years, Nam said. In that time, we have encountered many species, guided many civilizations. But we have never—" He paused, seeming to struggle with the admission. "We have never been challenged to reconsider our fundamental assumptions." He gestured toward the human delegation. "Humanity chose a different path. They explored in secret, yes, but more importantly, they saw value where we saw only primitive potential. They formed partnerships where we would have established hierarchies." The treaty document appeared on the large display screen, a complex agreement establishing a new interstellar order. No longer would the assembly stand as the sole authority in the galaxy. Instead, a new galactic council would include representatives from all spacefaring species, with decisions made through consensus rather than dictate. "Most remarkable," Nam continued, "is their fold drive technology. While we forced space-time to bend to our will through brute force, humans discovered how to work with the fabric of reality, finding efficient paths we never considered." Kim couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. The human approach to FTL travel had indeed become a metaphor for their approach to galactic politics, finding unexpected solutions, respecting natural boundaries, and achieving results through harmony, rather than dominance. As the signing ceremony proceeded, Kim found herself standing next to a Vel representative, a being whose translucent body pulsed with bioluminescent patterns inside its environmental suit. "Your people changed everything," the Vel said, its thoughts translated through the communication system. "When humans first contacted us, we believed you were gods. Then you showed us the stars, taught us technology, and asked for nothing but friendship in return." "We were once like you," Kim replied, looking up at the stars, wondering if we were alone. "The assembly found our world centuries ago," the Vel continued. "They categorized us as primitive aquatic life and moved on. You found us and saw people." Across the room, the Nari representatives were engaged in animated conversation with assembly scientists. The crystalline beings had developed a unique approach to mathematics that was already revolutionizing certain fields of study, knowledge that would have remained undiscovered under the old order. After the final signatures were applied, the formal reception began. Kim found herself standing near Admiral Tay once more. "I've been authorized to share something with you," Tay said quietly. "Something few outside the High Council know." Kim raised an eyebrow, waiting. 3 times in our history, the Assembly encountered species that might have challenged our dominance, Tay explained. 3 times we ensured they would not. You destroyed them, Kim stated flatly. Tay's skin darkened with what Kim had learned was embarrassment or shame. The Assembly feared any power that might upset the established order. When your ships were discovered, many called for the same approach. What changed? By the time we found you, you were already too dispersed, too established, Tay said. And when you revealed your connections with the Nari, the Vel, and others. He shook his head. The High Council realized that eliminating humanity would require a galaxy-wide war we could not win. Kim kept her expression neutral, though the confirmation of humanity's darkest suspicions chilled her. So peace was the pragmatic choice. At first, yes, Tay admitted. But then something unexpected happened. Many of our younger members began to see the benefits of your approach. The innovation, the diversity of thought, the rapid advancement when species collaborate as equals. He gestured to the mingling delegates. Look around you. In 1 month, we've seen more genuine scientific and cultural exchange than in the previous century. Kim watched as humans, assembly members, Nari, and Vel interacted freely. The old boundaries were dissolving before her eyes. So what happens now? She asked. Tay's expression softened. Now we build something new together. It won't be easy. The old guard will resist. Prejudices don't disappear overnight, but the path is clear. As the reception continued, Kim found herself returning to the observation window, looking down at Earth. Humanity had hidden for centuries, preparing for this moment. The moment when they would step onto the galactic stage not as newcomers to be controlled, but as equals to be respected. Oops, they found us, she whispered to herself, echoing her words from that first day. But what the assembly had found wasn't just another species. They had found a mirror showing them what they could become, a more just, more equal, more dynamic. Galactic civilization, and that Kim realized was perhaps humanity's greatest contribution of all.